Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. The World Championship is officially underway. Two big results going down yesterday, especially major reaction from Sentinels as to what went wrong in their series against Giant and what needs to change if they want to try and even get out of their group and then potentially still make a run in this tournament. But big drama elsewhere at the World Championship, especially with the setup of the main stage. Many are comparing the stage for the World Championship this year to many other even regional or even worse international events in the past, and somehow things have only seemed to have gone backwards. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments, hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always. Let's get right into it, because there's plenty to discuss. Fnatic get underway in a couple of days time, we'll see towards the end of the video, but before we get there, Group D is going to be very interesting. Now it is confirmed Demon1 will be playing with DRG, so there's a load of different angles on this. We'll get into it now. Unfortunately, and I'm really, sad for Vukashi that this has transpired in this way, because he's been such a great player this year in the Chinese region, dealing with the language barriers, done so well for DRG. But unfortunately, his visa didn't happen. It got denied or whatever, and he won't be able to make it. I'm not going to go to Paris. Want to say sorry to the fans. They were expecting me there. Sorry to my teammates. Try my best to not put you guys in circumstances, but life has different plans for me. Sucks to not be with the team, but this is why they signed Demon1, and it's now been confirmed official by Dragon Ranger Gaming that here he is. Demon1 will be playing. I mean, look, he's also Russian, right? So I guess it works kind of nicely. He will be playing the remainder of this tournament for Dragon Ranger Gaming. So yeah, I don't know what their practices look like over the last couple of days, but DRG Demon1 is official. Vukashi is not going to make it out there in time. Demon1 will be playing it for the team. So we'll see how that transpires in a second. I did want to quickly mention before we move on from this, what does it mean for DRG's chances this tournament? Because, look, as good as I think Demon1 still is, and as nice of a replacement as I think he could be, they've succeeded a lot with Vukashi this season, and they've got all the preparation with him. So you can't imagine that it's going to be good for DRG's chances this event, as exciting as it is to see Demon1 play. As a result, they need a big result against, especially where XLG eventually finished. If you guys aren't aware, DRG were the Challengers team, but XLG are also Challengers team as well. So they are in the guest slots. Both of those teams made it to the World Championship, as we know, because they're right here. So as a result, the theory goes that if you make champs, you get to stay guaranteed for next season no matter what. But one Ascension team will always at least get the possibility to ascend. So whoever wins the Chinese Ascension, which might be Simon's team, by the way, because Simon's team actually qualified for it. If you guys aren't aware, Simon, formerly Edward Gaming player, bit of drama there this season, he went down to Challenges, and he's now got a team that has qualified for Ascension. So that's the whole story. But the point is, whoever finishes lower at the World Championship out of DRG and XLG, they will be forced to play for their spot in Ascension, whereas the other team will guarantee to stay. Now, if both of them place the same position, I think XLG take it on effectively a tiebreaker. So DRG need to outplace XLG. Now, XLG, we'll see how they're getting on in a second over in Group A, but effectively, DRG need to win a series, right, with Demon1, and that is going to be easier said than done in what is a rather challenging group. Now, there was also talk from Sliggy. We talked yesterday about the new heads-up display, and I like the changes they've made in general, but one thing we didn't really talk about yesterday, but Sliggy and pretty much everyone noticed immediately as soon as they actually started watching the game, is where the economy is, right? Not being able to see the amount of credits that the players have. Maybe the thought process here for Riot is to make it more simplistic to view on mobile. Maybe, I think that's probably part of their analysis, but it's quite important to know credit numbers. And yeah, you can see them on that kind of head-to-head screen that they have, but in real time, it just reduces the amount of information that you have as a spectator, which is difficult to argue that can be a good thing. The other thing, which is almost certainly not good, is this. So, just by way of comparison here, these are some of the stages that we have seen. I mean, and it's very frustrating to see this, right? Because this is, right about here, the stage for this year's VALORANT World Championship in Paris. And, well, it doesn't exactly have the same aura as some of the other previous events have had. even, I mean, look, even the regional finals that we just had over in the Pacific was far more spectacular than this for the Valorant World Championship. Even go back a few years to like Reykjavik, their stage it felt like was better than this. And a ton of the internationals and even regional events over the last couple of years have seemed more prestigious than this stage that Riot have cooked up. I mean, you know, just to compare Sentinels versus Gen.G from last time out, this is kind of what things looked like then. And here we are this year, the walkouts, it was just all a little bit underwhelming, right? Now look, maybe when we get to the top 4, things are going to get a little bit crazier, and I'm sure that they will. But look, we know that it's not cheap to run these events, obviously, especially because Riot insist on running the events over such a long period of time, right? Like, the event takes like 3 weeks because they play only 2 matches a day. If they didn't do that, if they played more matches over a course of just a few days, then they probably would be able to make it work. But that is the question, right? Lembo and others are saying, look, if you guys just run out of money, how disrespectful is this? Even the fans were disrespected by it. It's absolute trash. So, yeah, I can understand that, because you look at all the events of this season, some of the regional finals, the World Championship so far has been more underwhelming than the vast majority of them, which is not exactly a great sign. But look, at the end of the day, it's still the World Championship. Something clutches a nice little 1v2 here against XLG. This was a particularly important one because at the time they were down 6-4, but after that it all turned around rather quickly and PaperX took the win 13-9, and then they won the Sunset 13-5, and they called it a day. So look, PaperX advanced, pre-tournament favourites in many respects. Forsaken, something were top in the numbers, Jing wasn't far behind either, and XLG, they put up a good fight early on the binds, but then especially after that clutch from something, then it all started to turn around. So PaperX advanced. The other big game of yesterday was Sentinels. Now, we've discussed over the last few days that Sentinels were potentially getting a little advantage in this series against Giant-X because Giant-X's Ara was unwell, but it's not like Giant-X were a team to be underestimated, right? They've done very well lately in Europe, they've made some serious progress, and they were a team that was going to be a threat, but it felt like with all the factors in play, Sentinels were still going to be the favourites. It ends up going to a final map of the series, and despite this phenomenal 1 versus 3 here from Zekken, there was a lot of talk. I mean, they lost the Sunset spectacularly, and that is a big concern, because that is a great map for Sentinels on paper, right? Sunset or whatever. And even on the final map, Zekken clutches disgusting 1 versus 3 through the smoke. Even the crowd doesn't have the aura of some other events, I'm not going to lie. Not to say the crowd's at fault, it's just the way that it's all set up and everything isn't to plan. Sentinels, nice attacking sides, but then they go to the defensive sides, and that's when the JonQT meme comes through with the 1 finger in the sky, because they then had an absolute disaster class on the defensive side. Cloud had phenomenal attacking half, FNS says, so, you know, FNS is giving the credit to Giant-X rather than the other way around, but it does have to be said, especially with some of the situation like this, the way that it happened on the Haven, that it all fell apart pretty dramatically. So the Corrode, Sentinels won 13-6, very solid opening map performance. The Sunset though was a bit of a disaster, and if you look at this map here, really it was only the European players, you know, like all of the Americans, obviously JonQT from Morocco, so you can call it EMEA, Narrate, Zelsis, Zekken, Bang, all with very difficult maps, and then the Haven was 13-9. Again, if you look at their defensive side, it looked like this, right? They got pretty much crushed. Narrate was running it down. Bang had just an awful series, top to bottom. So, yeah, I don't know, right? Like, Giant-X, Cloud, great performance. Ara did his job towards the end of the series as well. We know the Giant-X are a pretty scary team. They've caused some upsets recently and made some progress, but Sentinels would not have expected to lose, certainly not in this fashion. And is there really that much hope that Sentinels can find a way to turn it around from here? Zekken says, well played to them, it was pathetic from us. 1-2 versus Giant-X. And Ryan points out that the last time that Sentinels beat a European team on stage was 390 days ago at Champions last time out. That's when they beat Fnatic. Since then, every time they've played a European team, it's not gone to plan. John QT says we let the game slip away. So, you know, obviously he speaks French, right? So it feels probably a little bit like a bit of a home event for him. But they will play XLG, I guess, at least to their credit. Like, to Paper X's credit, they did win against XLG, and we know that Sentinels do like to play the Chinese teams, right? So, look, they've got a few days, several days, in fact, to prepare for that game against XLG. If they win that, they will play the loser of Paper X and Giant X, of course. So, you know, presumably it might be Giant X again. If it is, they're going to have to do a lot of work, of course, to prepare for that series to get better. And even as Curry says, we've become a one-team region, and people are saying, well, G2 is actually European. So, you know, it's funny to think about, because it wasn't long ago that the Americas felt very, very competitive top to bottom. Now there's questions as to whether really G2 are the only serious team in the region, and the European region, which was apparently a one-team league in Fnatic, has now turned around itself. So that's what happens in Group A. That is still what is happening in Group A. Paper X, Giant X, XLG, Sentinels. But yeah, it's the 19th of September that next game happens, and then 2 days after that, Sentinels, if they beat XLG, will play the decider. Today, Group C gets underway. So it's NRG versus Edward Gaming, and it's Liquid DRX. I think Liquid should beat DRX, especially with all the drama about DRX's roster, which has been happening over the last few days, and exactly who they're going to field for it, because Estrella we don't think has even travelled with the team, so that's still to be determined. But NRG versus Edward Gaming, this is a big one, right? And it's very difficult to call. I think I'm leaning the way of NRG, but at the end of the day, it's Edward who are here to try and defend their World Championship titles. There's got to be something in that. DRG, they need to win at least something if they want to ensure that they stay in the VCT guaranteed for next season. Can they beat T1? I think possibly they can. The other matches in their group, I think, are going to be a challenge. So, yeah, we'll see. G2, Heretics, Dragon Ranger Gaming, T1. Those happen in, of course, tomorrow. And then Group B follows that. So, very much interested your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.